everybody, welcome in to the first edition of Keeping Up with Oak Mountain Athletics. I'm your host, Caleb Brooks, and joined by the head football coach at Oak Mountain, Coach Tyler Crane. And Coach, first of all, we appreciate you guys being willing to be here to do this with us here with Average Joe Sports Talk. And second off, I know you're excited because football season's here and we're ready to kick things off and get things going.
Absolutely. Couldn't be more excited. Just got through with practice a little while ago, so, it's fresh on my mind, and we're excited to get it going.
Tell me a little bit about this team this year. Coming off last year was a great year for you guys, and now having to replace some guys that you guys had that were big-time playmakers offensively. And so what does this team really look like so far this offseason? What's really kind of stood out and impressed you so far?
I think the biggest thing for our guys this year is just seeing them grow. Last year we had a lot of guys that, had done it for a while, and, you can go back and talk about Evan Smith, you can go back and talk about Gavin Nelson and Cam Atkinson, and we had a really good core group of guys. Seeing the new leaders step up has been a really good thing for these guys, and I'm really excited about seeing what they're able to do as the season goes along, and it could be a special year.
You guys play in the toughest region that there is in the state. You could argue it's the toughest region that we have in this whole entire country.
Absolutely.
And for you came from a place that was another tough region, maybe the second toughest region in the state there at Phoenix City. And so coming into this, getting to face this last year, we say this is the toughest region. What in your mind makes this a tougher region than what you were in before you came into this last season?
I think it's just the quality of teams top to bottom. Don't get me wrong, every team down in South Alabama was absolutely amazing. We had some really good athletes, Auburn and Opelika and obviously Phoenix City and Enterprise. There were some really, really good football teams. I think here is, week in and week out, you have to bring your A game all the time. Every day. The Hoovers, the Thompsons, the Hewitts, but not only them, but Vestavia and, Spain Park. And you have to make sure that you're on your A game every week.
When you look at this year's team now coming into this year, you mentioned Evan Smith. Obviously, that's a guy a key guy that you're going to have to replace. And so how are things going to be different with this team not having him playing the quarterback position for the first time in a long time around here?
When you don't have the high school version of Michael Vick standing back there for you, it's a little bit different. But no, we're excited about Willowdale. I think that he's going to have a great year. Obviously, he'll have some growing pains as we go through things, but we expect that. So we don't want to put everything on his shoulders, but we think that he's very mature for his age. He's very wise for his age. He understands what we're asking of him, and we're going to not try to put everything on his shoulders, but we're going to put enough on him that he's got to go do some things. I don't think you replace Evan Smith, but I think that you figure out a way to adjust to make your offense fit the pieces that you have.
When you look at the success that you guys had in football last year, obviously basketball and what they've done the last 2 years, do you feel like that this athletics program as a whole is really kind of building some momentum right now to show people, hey, we're kind of here to stay in all these regions and areas that we're in?
Absolutely. You go back and you look at baseball. Baseball's been successful for a while now. And then you've got basketball, and they've been successful. And I've told people, having been here before, there are a lot of great athletes walking around in the hallways. Now you got to find a way to get them out. Football's hard. It's a little bit harder than going to baseball practice or basketball practice sometimes. But I think that once we got here and established what we were about, getting the kids to come out was a lot easier. I know last year we had about probably 25 or 30 new kids come out and play football that hadn't played in a while or maybe their first time or whatever. And a lot of those kids were able to really help us. I can go back and talk about Ja'Kai Mullins and, a kid that I saw sitting in PE on the bleachers one day and was like, dude, you play football? And he was like, no, I haven't played football in forever. And ended up being one of our best linebackers. There's so many kids walking around in there that if you can get them to come out, and we didn't get them all. We didn't get them all at all. You know, you can talk about Wilder Evers that's at Kansas playing basketball right now. I begged him. I tried. And if he had walked out there and made 2 plays, he'd probably be playing football at Kansas. But, I mean, there were some guys walking around I really wanted to get out. But, you know, getting the ones that we did helped us be successful last year, because without them, we wouldn't have been what we were.
Talk about the importance of depth. You know, I mean, we're talking about getting all these guys out, having them there at this level of football. How important is, you know, you're going to find 22 starters at a school your size, at a 7A. You're going to have 22 starters. It's the guys after that kind of make the biggest difference. So how important is building that depth, especially throughout the year? You know, as the season goes on, you're going to get guys that weren't ready to play week 1 that are ready to play week 8. And so just building as the year goes on, and those guys understanding I'm not starting week 1, but I'm still going to have a role on this team. How important is that?
Absolutely. I mean, look at our team now. We have a lot of 10th graders that are playing significant minutes for us. And I think that can go back to last year when we started keeping the 9th grade with varsity all the time. Our 9th grade goes through everything that our upperclassmen do. They go through the same indie drills. They're with our varsity coaches. Now, it's not ideal sometimes. I guess that's just kind of, you know, the nature of the beast, not really having a 9th grade staff. But those guys going through the workouts, through the expectations, you know, the accountability, all the things that we ask of those varsity guys, they're doing too. And so the younger and younger I can get my hands on them, and the quicker I can get my hands on them, the quicker we can start teaching what we want done. And I believe that's why a Will O'Dell, a Cole Kelly, a Zach Fitzgerald, those type kids are able to help us this year, is because they saw what it was supposed to look like, and they understand our expectations, and the weight room and all that really helped those guys out a lot. Now, I don't know if they're ready all the time, but the good thing about it is by the time those guys are juniors and seniors, we shouldn't have to be asking freshmen to help us in spots. Now, we still will this year. You know, I think we'll have some young guys that will really help us down the road, but you know, hopefully as we continue to build this thing, our numbers in our upperclassmen areas will continue to stay where they're at, and we'll get this thing about 125, 130 players every year, and then, you know, I may have to go to the county and be like, hey, you're going to have to get us some more coaches, like, we're overflowing. So, but it's exciting. It's exciting to see kids being excited about it. It's exciting to see the numbers that we have built in the 10th grade and the 9th grade classes. And then, you know, we got to continue that. So it's been a lot of fun. A lot of headaches sometimes, you know, having 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and all of them together. But at the end of the day, it's worth it. It's worth to see the progression that they're making, and, you know, seeing which ones can step up and which ones need a little bit more time.
When you have the 9th graders out there, like you talked about, it's not ideal sometimes because you have more kids in a drill, so certain guys are getting less reps, things like that. But in the long run, can it be a good thing in the sense that they're there as 9th graders watching the varsity practice, they're watching the seniors go already, and when they are 10th graders, 11th graders, they're ready to kind of maybe step up and be leaders before their senior year. That can really help this team.
No doubt. And, you know, I go back to my time like at Central Phoenix and, you know, love the way we were able to do things there, but I didn't see a freshman until their spring semester, like until they came up to start working out. I didn't know who they were. And now I'm getting kids when they're in 7th, 8th, going into 9th grade doing workouts and stuff with us. So that relationship that I'm building with those kids and wanting them to be a part of what we're trying to do is really helpful. Just seeing how much this 9th grade group that we have right now, how much they've grown just since January when we started bringing them with us. You know, last year we didn't get the 9th grade, really get the 9th grade group till July. I've had this 9th grade since January, and like the transformation's been daylight and dark. So I fully expect this time next year, those guys being able to really take control of some stuff. Now, obviously, you never, at this class of football and in this region, you definitely don't want a freshman playing on Friday nights. But having those guys compete to try to get on the field and do that kind of stuff is really awesome to see. And it's been really good watching those guys learn from the older guys, again, about like what our expectations are, how we expect them to come to work every day. and them going ahead and learning that work ethic now instead of trying to do it as 10th graders is invaluable.
We got to go and visit with you a couple weeks ago. Some nice new things kind of going on with the weight room up there. You've got a lot more space to do work in. You've got nice racks that you got in. Can you see the kids taking more pride in their workouts and weightlifting, seeing what has kind of been done for them from an athletic standpoint up there?
I can. Obviously, when I first got here, we were a little bit behind in some areas, and that's okay. We worked really, really hard to get our weight room and stuff the way we want it, because at the end of the day, that's where it starts. The weight room is the most important place to me ever. I mean, X's and O's are X's and O's, but that weight room is where they're going to spend most of their time. We've been able to redo some stuff at Herdmont, locker rooms and things like that, and all that stuff's really important. But the weight room was the number one thing that I wanted to get done first. And it's shown. Like, you look at our kids now, and they don't look like the same kids. Now I think we're not where we need to be, but we're a lot closer than we were last year. You can ask the kids from last year, what's been the biggest difference, and even the ones that have graduated have said, I wouldn't have been where I was had we not done X, Y, Z. So, seeing them understand what we're doing is working, and seeing the process that we're trying to, get them to be a part of. And, everybody's always said, well, you're a little undersized at Oak Mountain, you're this, you're that. It's not really the case. Like, we have to develop what we have and make the best of what we have. But at the same time, there's athletes in that school, and they can help us. It's making it appealing, whether it's changing the color of a helmet, whether it's, decals, jerseys, people my age and older think, well, why should that matter? But in today's society, that matters. Like, it matters, they want a little swag. We had to teach them how to celebrate. Like, that was one of the craziest things when I first got here was we had to teach them how to be excited. We had to teach them that it's okay to have fun when you play. It's okay to get after it. And seeing that transformation and seeing throughout last season how you could see the shift in mindset and understanding, like, I belong. I deserve to be able to do this. Like, it made a huge difference in our program.
When you look at this summer, what has really kind of stood out to you just about the leadership of this team, just the way that this team has worked and kind of the motivation that they have coming off of last year, where it was a good year but obviously didn't end the way that you guys wanted it to?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I think the kids understand what it's supposed to look like. I think they finally understand that what we have to do to compete for state championships, it's inside. They understand what they need to do. They understand what it's going to take. I think last year, we had a fantastic season. I think that we had some bad breaks. Evan got hurt against Thompson. The first game really hurt us the last couple games. But take nothing away from the teams that we played. I mean, Hewitt and Clay were really, really good. But at the same time, we saw in ourselves that we could go get the job done like we did at James Clemens and stuff like that. Now, you turn around and play Thompson again in the second round of the playoffs, they're good. They're good. I mean, there's nothing to take away from those guys. They did a fantastic job. They knew who we wanted to have the ball in their hands, and, that's the, seeing Evan run against those guys, like, it's the first time we ever really looked at each other as a coaching staff and go, okay, he's against those guys out there right now, he's just another guy. And that's crazy to think that he's as good as he was. There was guys just as good as he was. And so we know that going into it, we understand, but at the same time, we know that if we continue to work and we continue to push ourselves each and every day, the margin is starting to close, I feel like. And if we can just keep closing that gap, eventually we'll be able to get over that hill.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Keeping Up with Oak Mountain show. I want to thank Fifo Bradys for sponsoring the show, allowing us to come in here. Come to Fifo Bradys right off 280. When you're driving up 280, you can find Fifo Bradys. We appreciate their support. We'll be back with more here on Keeping Up with Oak Mountain right after this. Fifo Bradys Brook Highland, located off Highway 280, is a proud supporter of Oak Mountain Athletics and the Keepin Up with Oak Mountain Athletics show. Come out each Wednesday night at 6 p.m. to see the show filmed live on location with various guests involved in Oak Mountain Athletics and enjoy great food and a great atmosphere, including 99-cent wings. Come on out to Fifo Bradys Brook Highland and support the Oak Mountain Eagles. Welcome back in here to Keeping Up with Oak Mountain's Athletics. Caleb Brooks joined by head football coach Tyler Crane at Oak Mountain High School. We apologize for some technical difficulties for those watching on Facebook. Hopefully got those fixed. And if you're wanting to go back and watch the first half of this show, you will be able to find that on the Average Joe Sports Talk YouTube page. We'll post the full version of this onto there. And again, want to thank Fifo Bradys for allowing us to come out here, film this show live, and bring this to you each and every week. So make sure to go out to the Fifo Bradys on 280 and give them a shout and give them a visit, and some great food and a great atmosphere, and wouldn't be able to do what we do without them. So Coach, we spent a lot of the first segment kind of talking just about the team as a whole and what this team really kind of looked like. Let's now look at this team from an offensive standpoint. We talked a little bit about Evan Smith leaving and having a new quarterback step in, but how is it going to change how this offense looks with Evan Smith not being there, a guy who runs the football all the time, can make plays, when he had a defender in his face, able to make a move, get out of the pocket and do stuff. And so just how is it going to kind of change the dynamic of this offense now going into the 2022 season?
I think the biggest thing is we're finally going to be able to see what other guys can do. Last year we really had some guys step up and do some big things. And I mean, if you talk to Evan today, he would tell you, look, I didn't do it all by myself. We had a lot of guys make some big plays last year. And a lot of those guys are back. From an offensive line standpoint, I think that we're as talented as probably we've ever been on the offensive line. Having 3 starters back from last year, Luke Oswald, Hudson Youngblood, Sawyer Hodo, they're really good offensive linemen. And then you add in Cordell Williams at the right guard position. I feel very comfortable with those 4 up there. Now we've got to really solidify one more spot, and I think Friday night will really go a long way in doing that. But I feel comfortable about that spot up there. Then you look at, tight end position, Jackson Blackwell. He started for us last year as a sophomore all season long. He's going to be a lot better this year. So, that core nucleus of inside guys has potential to be really good. It's just going to be whether or not they do it or not. And that's one position, you have to be good at no matter what kind of offense you're running. And I think we have potential there. It's just going to be, what's it going to look like every Friday night?
How much do you feel like that this team, especially early in the season, is going to be counting on these returning guys that are coming back this season to have experience and have been in the fire before?
I mean, it's huge. You look at the offensive side of the ball, those guys that I named, but receiver-wise, we're young. We're going to have a lot of new faces. Running back should be, a senior-driven team part. So we have pieces. But the good thing about what our team is, we have that upper class group that's really done a good job, but then you have a really solid young group too. So, having that good mixture, you can see a lot of growth in our guys. Obviously, everybody wants to look at the offense and they think if you're not scoring 40 points a game, you're doing something wrong. But in reality, you got to take the pieces that you have and adapt that to what can make you successful. And I think that we've done a really good job of doing that. My offense coordinator, Tyler Ward, he's kind of going against what he really believes in and stuff this year, just so that he can make us as good as we can be. And that's the huge thing is, adapting. A lot of people can't adapt, but especially for us, adapting is going to be something that we've got to do year in, year out.
Coach Bell obviously had this offense run the triple option very, very well. By the time Evan was a junior, they had perfected it how long did it take to kind of get some of those concepts and stuff out last year? And has it been a little bit smoother this year, now a whole year into the new offense that you guys are running?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we did last year was still kind of option football. We just did it from the spread and we spread people out. We weren't foot to foot. We didn't play in a phone booth. But we still read, had reads, and tried to get Evan in space. So, that's been something that I think gets lost is, running the option doesn't have to be foot to foot, playing in a phone booth. You can spread it out and, your pitch might be a throw, RPO. I mean, it's the same concept. It's just one's getting pitched back and one's getting thrown forward. This year, I'm not real sure if a lot of kids really remember that, I mean, our seniors probably do a little bit, but, our juniors were freshmen. And it's crazy how fast that stuff goes by. And, you ask those kids now, they probably kind of vaguely remember it, but, it wasn't entrenched in them yet. And I will say that I think that was another reason why a lot of kids came out, because they saw us doing more, and receivers getting a chance to catch the ball and do stuff other than block. So, I think it definitely played a big part into what we are now, but at the same time, what we looked like last year won't necessarily be what we look like this year. I don't want to give too many hits away, but we'll definitely be a lot different. We will be different.
Is, without giving away too much, is one of those differences, you talked about being a little bit more senior-led at running back. Is one of those differences being probably counting on the running backs to run the football a little bit more this year?
Well, look, I'm pretty old school, and anybody back, if, you talk about the Gaston area and stuff, I coach, I played for Steve Smith, I coach with Russell Jakeway and those guys, and, they're hard-nosed, physical, want to run the football kind of guys, and, I kind of got that in me being around those guys for so long. So if it was up to me, I wouldn't have any problems being like Coach Benefield on the 5 and just running there and playing. If we could run it like that, I'd do it. But at the same time, I like to have a little fun with it and throw it around a little bit. But if we could run it every play and win ball games doing that, I have no problem with that. And the less I could throw the ball, the less possible errors. Possible things could go wrong. Because when you throw the football, a lot of things can happen, and a lot of them are negative. So we want to keep that to a minimum, but we want to be very calculated when we throw the football. We want to be, if we can run the football successfully, it will open up a lot of other things that we can do offensively, and I think that's what we're going to try to be this year.
Looking at this Friday night, do you like the fact, as a coach, a couple of years ago it was, hey, week 0 comes around and you can play a Jamboree if you want, or you can start your season. Now you have the opportunity to play a Jamboree game and still start on week 0. As a head coach, do you like having that opportunity now to get to do that?
I do, and again, I kind of go back to, a lot of things that I've learned in this profession were from Coach Smith and Coach Jakeway and Coach Nix, and I've been very fortunate to be around a lot of really, really good coaches, a lot better than I may ever be. But one thing that Coach Smith doesn't do, he doesn't have spring football, and so he lets his athletes go play other sports, and I think that's a huge thing in today's athletic, just in high school athletics overall is. There's so many kids that don't play multiple sports because they feel like they're being pulled in a million different directions. I want our kids to play as many sports as they can. I want them to be well-rounded. I played football, baseball, basketball through high school. I mean, that's just what I did. And that's what we all did. And we just didn't know any better. And so I want our kids doing that. And by doing that, it allows them to just focus on that kind of stuff. But it also helps us because now, if we don't do spring, we get to start a week earlier in the fall. Well, I'll take that week earlier in the fall over those 10 days in the spring that half of them are going to forget anyways. And so, with what you can do during the summer with 7-on-7s and you got your 2 hours a week and things like that, like you can get all you need done in the spring without having to have a spring. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that go as the years go by, that coaches much rather have that extra week in the summer. And for us, it's very beneficial because, we can get ahead of the game a little bit, but from an X's and O's standpoint, now spring is just kind of irrelevant. I mean, you're doing that stuff already throughout the year. I guess if you're a new coach and you want to see what you have talent-wise, sure. But I feel like if you're established, you know what you got coming back. Let those kids go run track. Let them still compete in baseball. Let them go do those things because they're going to do it. Whether they're going to do it, it's whether or not they're going to quit your sport to go do it or not. So we want those guys to enjoy being multi-sport athletes and still want to be a part of football.
I think another thing on top of the with changing spring football, doing that, is you got some coaches too that coach other sports. And they get done with softball or baseball or whatever it is that they're doing, and they don't necessarily want to walk right back out there and do 2-3 weeks of football.
Well, and it's actually a compliment. Our baseball program is usually really pretty good, and we've got some guys that coach baseball. So I don't want to be trying to pull those guys to come to football. My offensive line coach was track coach last year. I didn't. He's going to state and track. Well, go focus on that, So in the weight room, it's nice to have your coaches. Don't get me wrong. But I'm very fortunate that we have Godspeed who does our workouts, and it really takes a burden off me, because if it wasn't for them, it would just be the head coach in there. And we're very fortunate to have those guys that. Coach Sam Jeffries, he's the one that kind of runs our weight room and stuff like that. He's fantastic. Like, he's completely revolutionized our kids and what they can do and what they feel like they can do. So that's been very, very awesome to see that transformation. But because of them, I can be in there and maybe one other coach, and we're good. And so my coaches can go do what they need to do. Whereas if we didn't, now I feel like I would be doing the kids a disservice in the weight room. So all that kind of stuff plays a big part in we're okay with those guys still playing sports. So I think the biggest thing for us is to continue to do what we're doing and just try to make the best of it we can.
We'll take another quick break here on Keeping Up with Oak Mountain. When we come back, we will talk about the defensive side of the ball and start previewing Friday night coming up. Fifo Bradys Brook Highland, located off Highway 280, is a proud supporter of Oak Mountain Athletics and the Keeping Up with Oak Mountain Athletics show. Come out each Wednesday night at 6 p.m. to see the show filmed live on location with various guests involved in Oak Mountain Athletics, and enjoy great food and a great atmosphere, including 99-cent wings. Come on out to Fifo Bradys Brook Highland and support the Oak Mountain Eagles. Welcome back in here to Keeping Up with Oak Mountain Athletics. Caleb Brooks, joined by head football coach at Oak Mountain, Coach Tyler Crane. Coach, we've talked a lot about your team so far, and we've talked about the offensive side. That's what puts butts in the seats every single Friday night. Defense wins championships. And so, tell me a little bit about this defense going into this year, and especially now year 2, learning the system on defense.
Well, this year offensively we're going to be really new, and defensively we're going to be really new, because we actually brought in a new defense coordinator this year, Preston Sanford. He was at Hoover for I think the last 6 years. So, when the season ended, I decided I wanted to go out and find somebody that I felt comfortable with, and I want to bring in coaches that have seen what it looks like. And so, I was very, very fortunate to get Preston to come to Oak Mountain, and he's been great. And so I feel like we have 3 of the best coordinators in the state: offense, defense, and special teams. John Bullen's our special teams coordinator, and been at UAB, had been with Coach Rush Bros at Valdosta, places like that. So, he knows what it's supposed to look like. So, defensively, I think that our kids have seen another level, another step, really pushing them to be better than what we asked them to be last year. So, I think they're learning football a lot better. I think that's something that we really needed to get to, but overall, I think defensively, they have done everything that we've asked them to do.
When you look, we talked about the strength, the weight room and all that type of stuff. Are you seeing that on the defensive side kind of paying off with just the way that the defensive line's able to move guys, the way that linebackers can take on blocks and that type of stuff since you guys have put on the pads?
No doubt. I think we laughed about it the other night at our Eagle Day. Our kids walked out on the field, and I think I was talking to my offense coordinator. I was like, we finally look like everybody. Not like everybody else, but we're starting to look like some of them. Which last year, I think we walked out on the field and I was like, oh man, what in the world? But our kids just play so hard. And so once we get that part of it fixed, like, they're going to play hard. So, it's fun watching. And yes, the weight room has definitely made a huge difference in the look of our kids. And it's really going to help some of them. Like, putting that extra weight on will help them make it through the season a little bit better.
It's got to help with confidence too with those guys. I mean, you got to see them like being willing to go hit more and just willing to do stuff more, knowing I'm a little bit bigger, I can take this on.
Well, we got some that don't lack for confidence. I promise you that. Like, they're always looking in the mirror and they're flexing a little bit now, and which is a good thing. It's kind of fun watching them get bigger and really once you see them do that kind of stuff, they really take ownership in it and they get excited about getting bigger. So they want to be in the weight room more. But if you take a look at what our kids looked like last year, and you look at our defense this year, you would say, oh, okay, you're starting to look like we need to look. So it's been really good, really exciting, and they fly around. I think from an athleticism standpoint, I think we're very athletic on that side of the ball. From linebackers to outside backers to our defensive line. I really am excited about the speed and stuff that we have. We continue to get bigger, but we'll have to do that year in, year out. But seeing just the pursuit of how we're getting to the football and stuff, it's been really good. And it's been really good for our offense because I think our defense is really good. And so if you can move the football on them, you ought to be able to move the football on a lot of other people. So we'll see what happens.
With Friday, is it going to be more of just we're going to play base defense? We're not going to show too much, and we don't want to give away too many secrets on that side of the ball.
We're going to see the ball hit the ball. We're going to really try to get after it. I don't know. Obviously, I want to play a lot of kids Friday night. I want them to get as much game experience as possible. Watch those guys compete, because to me, this is just it's a dress rehearsal, but it's also a chance to give other guys an opportunity to see if they can help. By this point, you kind of know who you can trust, who you can count on. You kind of want to get those guys out there, let them have a little fun with it, keep them healthy, and get them into next week. But at the same time, if you got a kid that's kind of on the verge and maybe he can help, maybe he can't, this is a good opportunity for them to get out there and show what they can do, and whether they can or whether they can't.
Getting the first game jitters out of the way, is that also where, obviously it's not game one. Everybody knows that Northridge is going to be game one next week and all that. But, kind of getting those first game jitters. I remember when I played the first drive that I played, I was way more tired than I was the rest of the year, after any drive. So does Friday kind of give these guys a chance to get that out of the way and kind of maybe go into the next week a little bit more comfortable in a game type situation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, those young guys that didn't play last year, or some of those freshmen that are dressed out, go ahead and get that out of their system. Like, let all the bright lights be bright, get all that stuff out of your system so that the next week when you roll in there, you're not that worried about it. Now, for me, I don't think that there's ever been a Friday night, whether I was a player or coach, that I haven't been nervous. Like, it's just who I am. Like, I'm always going to think, did I do this good enough? Did I prepare them as best I could? Did I make sure that I said the right things before we went out? So, like, to me, that's just something that I just have to live with. But our kids, like, they know what they're capable of. They understand. We push them really, 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 really hard so that Friday nights are easy. And, as soon as they bought into that and they understood, like, Coach loves us, but he's going to push us until, like, we can't stand him. But at the end of the day, they know that we care about him. So, Friday nights, that's the reward. And you gotta give it to them that way so they don't make it bigger than what it needs to be.
When you look at the schedule for you guys, to me, your rivalry games are kind of placed in some tough spots. Pelham right before you go to Hewitt-Trussville, Briarwood right before you start really a gauntlet at the end of the season. And so how key is it going to be for your guys, even though those are rivalry games against Briarwood, Pelham, they're not region games, and so maybe not putting too much stock into those games, how they go, and being focused on what you guys have to accomplish to get yourselves in the postseason?
We're not going to look past anybody. First game's Northridge. After that, we'll turn our attention to Pelham. But I think the biggest thing for our kids is understanding, like, each week is a grind. Every team that you play is going to be well coached. They're going to have really good athletes, and they're going to play hard. The reason we schedule Pelham, Briarwood, then those top teams, Northridge, is because as quality football teams. And you have to play quality football teams to be able to get ready to go play really quality football teams. You know, Hewitt's going to be no pushover. Hoover's going to be Hoover. Thompson's going to be Thompson. But at the same time, I want our kids to understand that every time we walk out on the field, whether they're wearing orange and black, green and gold, or whatever, they've got to bring it. And so I'm never going to schedule somebody that I think we can just roll out there and beat. Like, the competitor in me doesn't want to do that. So, you know, I'm excited and getting them to understand that, like, again, every week is a grind and we got to look forward to it.
Going into this Friday, I mean, what are your keys for this team to go be successful? What are you going to be mainly looking for the most from this group?
I just want them to compete. Yes, I want, at the end of the night, I want our score to be higher than our ones. Don't get me wrong. But I'm more worried about seeing our guys compete. I'm more worried about seeing who can do what. Because at the end of the day, this game, the score, to me, it's two different games. You got the starters doing their thing, and then you're going to have young guys playing. But I want to see our guys compete. I want to see them flip a switch. I want to see Emmanuel Waller be unblockable. I don't want to see anybody be able to touch him. I want to see Willowdale be poised in the pocket and throw the football. I want to see our offensive line do the little things right. I want to see our running backs run like, Manny Rooster to get after it. I want to see our receivers catch the football, run good routes, catch the football, and give us good film so that on Sunday we can go in and evaluate where we need to get better. All it is a glorified scrimmage. But at the end of the day, when they put that score on the board, like, it matters. So we want to go out there and do the best we can. We want them to compete and, gain some confidence. You got to have some confidence. And, I want to see how our special teams does. I want to see how people react to the sideline. Like, to me, there's a million different things that I'm looking for that maybe you don't think about in the grand scheme of things, but body language. Who's going to be excited on the sideline? Who's going to be cheering? Are you going to kind of sit back in the back with your friends? Are you going to be right there engaged and locked in? Are you going to be, hey, when your group's called out, are you going to be on your special teams? Are you going to be standing over not paying attention? Like, all of those kind of things are things that, as a head coach, I feel like are the most important things for you to find out. And then you can get that fixed going into game week. But just compete. Just compete your butt off and get after it.
Coach, really appreciate you taking the time to join us here this week, keeping up with Oak Mountain. We're really, really excited about having this show weekly right here at Fifo Bradys live from the Fifo Bradys on 280. And look forward to being right back here next week on Wednesday where we'll do it for real and we'll get ready for game one against Northridge.
No doubt. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.